So recently, there has been a movement on social media about speaking out. The women of wrestling have been telling stories of things that have been going on in the locker room, experiences they have had with other workers. We have been highlighting sexual abuse, we have been highlighting mental abuse, and we've also been highlighting physical abuse as well. For myself, I was in an abusive relationship with another worker for many years. It screwed me up royally. It took me many, many years to work it out in my head and get to be a better person because of it. And I am joined by 7 other women, members of the Underground Virago Division, members of our Fight Underground Council office, and even one of our women from Ohio. We all have a story to tell, and I'm going to first throw it over to Honeybadger because she has been one of the most vocal on social media lately.
Yes, thank you guys so much for having me on. Obviously, it's not subtle news that I've been very vocal, especially with issues in the immediate Pittsburgh area, but not discrediting anything going on, obviously, in the West Virginia territory, as well as leaking into Ohio. Because unfortunately, with situations like this, it's everywhere. It's just we're starting to see it bubble to the surface and people saying enough.
Exactly. And I'm glad to see that the women are finally speaking up and speaking out about these people. Some of these guys have been around for 26 years and it's been the same behavior time after time after time. And anytime that we tried to speak out, we were told to shut up or we would lose our spot. I'm going to go to Missy, whose name has been brought up a lot recently as well. Missy, you want to tell a little bit about your experiences lately?
My experience is different from that of Honeybadger or some of the other girls in the ring because I've been working backstage. I'm in that back office. So it's interesting because my experience is watching and seeing what's going on. And a company that I did work for, they had a situation that girls were making complaints and it was being pushed under the rug, which isn't right. So we were working desperately to try to fight that sort of aspect of things in an effort to make it a better locker room for the women. And I'm hoping that going forward with Fight Underground, we're able to make that a better experience for the women and be able to bring in awesome talent that pretty much has written off part of the Pittsburgh area because of its history.
Yeah, I know that there's just been so many women that need to speak out and tell what's been going on about everything. And like you said, if we tried, it was swept under the rug. There was guys, even me at 300 pounds who nobody wanted anything to do with, was still being told by guys she was walking to the ring with, hey, if you do this, I'll help us do this, 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 and this. And well, you can know how that worked out. But next, I am going to go to Scarlett, who we normally don't get to hear from that often, but she's making an exception for us tonight.
I have been through many things in my young career in this business. It has taken me time to really grasp and understand myself and my place in this business also. Being a woman of color, also being very young and naive, you believe a lot of things and think a lot of things that are okay that are simply just not okay. And I've been through many situations in the locker room with not so much workers, with higher management, I'll say, and a place that I no longer reside. It's hard for me to talk about this but I think it's the time to talk about it. And I just thank everyone for listening.
Thank you, Scarlett. And you are right, it is time to start talking. Um, you and I, the same person, I couldn't even go to that person because he didn't care. He didn't like me, didn't give it. It got swept under the rug. Didn't even bother anymore. I'm going to go to someone who is not part of the Fight Underground Virago division yet. Joseline Navarro, would you like to tell us your experiences?
But I've had, had to help other girls go through things, and I'm very protective. I'm a very protective person in general, but especially of the other female wrestlers because at the end of the day, we all have a common ground, and we all have to stick together because people already don't like women in the business anyway. So they're going to try to take advantage of them as much as possible, and especially the girls that aren't as outspoken as I am, the ones that are more shy and more reserved, they're definitely going to try to take advantage of them. And I've seen people try to do it, and I don't allow it at all. So for any of the girls that's here or watching or whatever, anytime you are in a locker room with me and somebody makes you feel uncomfortable, let me know because I'm gonna be on their ass. Like I don't care about losing bookings or whatever, but I've never been one to tolerate harassment, bullying, none of that, and that goes into wrestling as well.
I have to agree. If same thing goes for me, if I am there and anybody experience anything you're uncomfortable with, come find me. After 25 years, I don't care who I piss off by knocking them out. The next person I'm going to go to is someone who is in our background a little bit, but she is a vital part of the Fight Underground, Ms. Marina. I know you've had a couple things happen you might want to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen both sides to it. I've been, in the background, but I've also had issues, even just ring announcing where I've been told I'm too fat or I'm not pretty enough or I don't have a certain look or what have you. I think the most important thing is just everybody sticking together and just continue to advocate for one another. I mean, like Badger, she's such a voice right now, and I just think it's phenomenal. Um, and anybody else who's been, just strong enough to share their story, like that's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we're going to throw it to Charlie Kruel, who is also joining us tonight. Charlie, do you have anything that you want to add here?
Yeah. So I've dealt with a lot of stuff in the business already. Being really young, I dealt with someone who, I'm not going to say names, of course, they don't deserve a platform, but they are canceled in the business. Like, they're not here anymore. Thankfully, that's probably the best thing that has ever happened with me in my career so far, is that guy is no longer taking advantage of me or my well-being or my mental state or anything. But he managed me for a very long time, and I met him when I was only 18 years old, and he really messed up my head, and he turned everybody against me and made me, for my first year in wrestling, made me feel like I wasn't good enough. Um, he went around telling people, um, about my ass or this and that. And for a long time, like, he turned so many people against me that I thought that he was my only friend in the business. And I only listened to him. Don't know why I did, but I was very naive. I was very gullible, and he knew that. And of course, as everybody knows, I do deal with autism. And he knew that, and that was another thing he took advantage of. Not only that, but I deal with depression and all this other stuff, and he knew that, and he took advantage of that. Even when, like, back in January, when everybody, like, first started coming out about him, I didn't come out about him then. I was still scared to, I still cut ties with him, but I was just scared to tell my story, and I wasn't ready. And then when the hashtag Speak Out movement started, I felt confident enough to open about my story and what he's done to me and how he made me feel. He ruined my first year of wrestling pretty much. I mean, it was he really got me heat everywhere. Heat that I didn't even know I was having. I didn't understand it. I didn't even know what heat was at first. He had to explain it to me. I didn't know why I was getting it. I didn't know what I was doing. It turns out that he was putting everybody against me. There's another guy who I don't even think the wrestling company works anymore, but I remember him telling a wrestler backstage in front of me that the only reason he booked me was because I have a good ass. There's been guys in wrestling that tried to sleep with me. There was one guy in wrestling that wanted me to go out to his car and do stuff with him in the parking lot of the area I was working in at that time. There's been guys who said all I'm good for is ass. It's very upsetting for me because wrestling is my go-to. Like, it's all I have. Like, I don't have anything else. I mean, I have my family, my boyfriend, my dog and everything, but like wrestling is like the main source. Wrestling is the reason we are actually together. And it's everything to me. So for people to be like, or for a guy to be like, oh, we only like to watch her because she has a good ass or whatever. It's really messed up. Because I don't feel like I'm just ass. I feel like I have a good character. I feel like I have a good personality, and I feel like I am doing really well in wrestling compared to what other people may think or see of me. And that's pretty much it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Charlie. I think there's been a guy who has ruined wrestling a little bit for all of us women in one way or another. Last but not least, I think Big Bang Roni Nicole was with us. I don't know if she still is.
I just, I don't know, because Bonnie, I am of you, well, not of you in terms of experience. You know, I only have 8.5 years going into 9 years in the business. But when I got into the business, I was pretty much told, you know, this is how it's going to be. This is part of the game. This is what you look out for, but it's going to happen. And it was almost as if we were being conditioned to think that that was okay and to think that those types of behavior were normal. There's one instance I can remember where I trained where another wrestler brought a semi-professional football player to training to pretty much show him that wrestling was harder, because apparently he had been having a lot of conversations about how wrestling wasn't hard and it wasn't really a sport and this and that and the third. And so this other wrestler thought it would be a good idea to bring him to training. And I had only been training at this facility for about 2 months. I had switched from one facility to this one. And in all my time there, it had only been myself and the trainers and the other students. But this time there were 15 other adults there, grown men who were wrestlers from the area, who just happened to have an interest in training that day. And the first thing they did was put him in the corner and cave his chest in. And I just remember being the only female in a room full of 22 men, feeling terrified that this guy was going to die. And there was honestly nothing I could do at that moment against these grown giant men to stop this, but really considering, is this what I wanted to be a part of? And I remember afterwards, I was very uncomfortable. And one of my trainers, well, the man who owned the training school, was like, this is just a part of the business, kid. You know, people talk shit about wrestling. This is what happens. We take care of our own. We deal with it in house, blah, 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 blah. And I just remember being like, oh, okay, cool. So like from the beginning, it was almost as if I was groomed or indoctrinated into this way of thinking that abuse is going to happen, you deal with it. Assault is going to happen, you deal with it. People are going to take your money, or either you're not going to get a lot of money because you're new, so you only deserve a hot dog and a handshake anyway. Like, all of this is the stuff that veterans are telling me as I come into what is supposed to be the business, that I dreamed about. And now, years down the road, I realized that the struggles that I personally had was because I didn't gel with that shit. Like, you can't go into any other industry and behave in some of the ways that people who claim to be professional wrestlers do. And I've always thought that if we are professional wrestlers and if it's professional wrestling business, then we should all conduct ourselves as such. There are a lot of people who, for a long time, not only in y'all's area, but in my area down here in North Carolina, who have used the business to further some glorified dream that they had, when the truth of the matter is they should have hung it up and maybe worried about personal responsibility or financial responsibility or going to school or doing something to put more good out into the world instead of putting toxicity into professional wrestling. I'm really happy that wrestling is almost being burned to the ground right now, because something that you love cannot live if it's poisoned. Something cannot grow if at its heart a lot of evil and a lot of darkness has seeped throughout the business for years. So what are we going to do? Just chop off that part and continue to let the root be rotten? No, this is a rebirth, not only in wrestling, but in the world. 2020 has revealed to us a lot of change is coming, and no one is immune to that. And wrestling, it's time. It's been time. Because if this is something that we all claim to love, because if this is a professional business, then we have to be the ones who uphold that. And being of that weird in between, some people who've wrestled less than years than me think I'm a vet. I don't consider myself a vet, only because I'm still learning about this business that we love. But if I am going to consider it a vet, it's my job and my duty. Every time I go, every time I have an interaction, anytime I'm trying to put something out there as it concerns this business, it's got to be better than what I was taught, because I was taught a lot of fucked up stuff. I was taught a lot of things that are not acceptable and it was literally just because I was raised differently that I did differently, because I know people who I trained with who were taught the same things and they just kept perpetuating these negative things, but that's what the vets told us. So how much can you blame people for perpetuating bad stuff if people are protecting it and telling you it's okay and it's acceptable? So when you have the wrestlers who come along and want to change that, that's what's happening now. We've gotten to a point where the business was so polluted that it no longer can sustain that. And so now it's seeping out, and everything from this point forward is going to create the business that we've always wanted it to be. Because I've seen a lot of stuff on social media, like wrestling is so bad, and I'm sad to see wrestling's dying, and wrestling. No, it's not wrestling. It is the people in wrestling that have poisoned what wrestling was supposed to be. What we do is an art and a gift. We are connected through a living oral history of wrestling that connects us from the ancients to now. What we do has so much significance in the lives of the people that watch us perform and in our own lives that it cannot be the problem that we have, and it isn't. It's the people who have had bad intentions. It is the people who have demons that they haven't felt the need to exercise before they get into a very chaotic industry. You cannot expect to be an artist and not deal with those demons, because what we do is art. But we have to be responsible artists and understand that taking advantage of people, assaulting people, treating people as if they are just commodities and not actual human beings, that comes with us. And that starts with us making the choices. I know that recently something happened where there was a time for people to be able to do that, and there were a lot of people who didn't. And we're not saying anyone's name, and we're not going to say where this was, but those are the moments that people have to stand up. You cannot stand by and say, oh, I'm not going to do this, and then turn around and do it. You can't say, I'm not going to share a locker room with someone knowing that they are improper, and then you turn around and take that payday. You cannot have your cake and eat it too. Either you're standing for the morals of changing this business and you want it to be better, or you don't. And if you don't, that's fine. No one is going to judge you for making different decisions. But you cannot walk around and tote on social media, oh, I'm for the change in the business. I want to protect the women in the business. I want to protect the young people who are being, taken advantage of, and then turn around and do the same thing that people have been doing the whole time. No, the time for hypocrisy is over. 2020 is revealing to us that we no longer can continue to live by the same standards we have in any sense of the word. So the homophobia, the racism, the prejudice, the sexism, all of the negative things that have made this business in some ways the darkness that everyone knows about, why we have Dark Side of the Ring, why my own mother never wanted me to be a wrestler because she knew about this evil, not even knowing about the business. This is the time where all that shit's going to stop. And we are the ones who are going to lead that change. And Bonnie, I have to extend an apology to you and Badger and all the women who had to deal with so much bullshit because you shouldn't have had to. No one should have to feel taken advantage of. No one should have ever had to feel like their dream was being used and weaponized against. Not a single fucking person should hold your dream hostage to make you do something. That's what a pimp does. And nobody should be pimped in this business, period. And for anybody who thinks it's okay to do that and to run around and lie and manipulate people so you can make your own pockets fat, I don't have to deal with you because 2020 will. And nobody else will have to deal with you because none of us are going to work with you. None of us are going to come to your shows or support your product because we're tired of being treated just like pieces of meat. We have lives. We are people. Everyone in this business puts their heart and soul into what they do, and to take advantage of that is fucking criminal. And so from here on out, things will change, and I do have hope, but it always gets better before it gets worse. And we have to make sure we leach all the poison out of the business. People have to keep speaking out. They have to talk about those instances where trainers were inappropriate. They have to talk about those people in the business, even if they're veterans and they're famous. Fuck that noise. Just because you're a great wrestler doesn't mean you're a good person. And just because you have the spotlight on you doesn't mean you deserve to have that spotlight on you, especially if you're doing dirty behind the scenes. Nobody's perfect. I've done my share of fucking dirt. My 20s was chaotic as hell. I'm still making up for that shit. But at the end of the day, every day, I try to wake up and put one foot in front of the other and do better. And if that is not what you're about, then you don't deserve to have a gift like wrestling be a part of your life. And you also don't deserve to be an emblem to others who like to share that gift. Because that's bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, how can you stand up here and say that, you're baby face and you fight for the underdog, and then you have all this dirty, weird stuff going on behind the scenes? Like, what? No. Get your life. Everyone has to be accountable for who they are. No one's saying you have to be perfect, but you do have to have common sense. And for the first time ever, I think everyone in wrestling is waking up to see that we no longer have to sit by where people who don't have common sense are in charge. That the people who really love this business, that really love to entertain and put hope in the world, and to see how people react when you perform, to know that you had a small part in changing that person's day and that person's life, because life is hard, that is what we're aiming for. And those are the people who are going to stick around, and that is what the business is going to be built on. And also, I'm sorry, I got on the soapbox and just did a monologue. My bad.
No, well
No,
said,
that is
Roni.
exactly what we wanted. That is exactly what we wanted to hear. Very well. And I got to say that I am to be joined on the council by men like Quinn and Paul and Brandon and Justin and Big, who I know will stick up for us, ladies, who will fight for us. We've already seen the canceling of one person from the council because of it. We will keep doing it if necessary. I have nothing but love for these guys. I am blessed to be a part of the council with them. Ladies, we are in good hands with these guys. Have no fear. Things are going to be different, at least here in the Fight Underground. This is where it's going to start. Brandon, you want to take it home?
Sorry, muted. Yeah, thank you, Stacy, for bringing us that segment. Thank you, ladies, for coming on and speaking your mind. It's very, very much appreciated. And that's it. That's all we have for this week. We will be back next week, 8 o'clock for Inside Out. This Thursday is the next council meeting, 8 o'clock as well. You can see that on Facebook Live. And if you haven't yet, go to our social media at FU Throwdown, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at Fight_Underground for TikTok. If you missed something on social media, check out the YouTube, and we will see everyone this Thursday, 8 o'clock.